Hi everyone, my name is Era and I'm the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. I chat with creators from all over the world to share their stories and discuss hot topics in a way that I hope inspires, educates, and entertains you.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hi everyone, this is Era, the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. As you know, I've been working really hard to deliver great guests and good content to you. I need your help with two things. Number one, hit that subscribe button if you're listening, especially on Apple or Spotify. Number two, go to thetamilcreator.com and spend 2 minutes to take the What Kind of Creator Are You quiz to find out your creator type. Awareness is the first step that will guide you in your journey to more possibilities and potential as a creator. Thank you so much, guys. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host, and today I have a super special guest on the podcast, and I hope I don't butcher his name because he helped me go through this, but his name is Anand Venkateswaran, and he's also known as Troubadour. If you don't know who he is, you've been living under a rock because he went from working as a journalist to, virtual shopping with artists for the world's largest NFT fund called Metaverse, along with his business partner, Vignesh Sundararajan. He's more commonly or popularly known as Metacoven. And the fund is estimated to be worth about $189 million. And what you probably heard about both of these individuals and specifically is buying the $69 million Beeple's Every Days, the first $5,000 5,000 days NFT piece at the Christie's auction house, which is kind of a big event because it kind of shifted kind of this new movement that's kind of coming, which I'll let Anand talk about a bit later. But Anand, why don't we kind of start the story off at the beginning, because it won't make sense unless we start there. So why don't you tell us a bit about kind of your upbringing, your family, and then we'll kind of move into your journey as a journalist as well.
Thanks for having me, Arvind. I'm going to help you out and get those last names locked in first. It's Anand Venkateswaran and Vignesh Sundaresan. Pretty straightforward, but that's one of the reasons we even adopted pseudonyms, I suppose, is to abstract a lot of that. Not that the pseudonyms are any easier to pronounce by a long stretch, but still, they're more fun to have. So I'm Troubadour. As far as origin stories go, mine is pretty boring. I had an idyllic childhood. I was born in Madurai in 1983, and I grew up in Vizag, which is a coastal town in Andhra Pradesh in the south of India. And how did I become a journalist is pretty straightforward because I had very little academic skills. I sucked at math and physics and chemistry. So the only option open to me, and the only thing I was decent at was communications. I could write because I liked to write, and so journalism was open to me. It took me about 8 years to figure out that journalism wasn't my true calling as such, but that communications was, and I started to meander around and look for other avenues to express myself. So I sort of stumbled into corporate communications. I started to write about everything from supply chain finance to food and beverage to hospitality to financial technology, transportation, and everything in between. Before I stumbled into crypto, I met Metacoven when I was a journalist at the Hindu way back in 2013. He discovered crypto recently. Then he discovered Bitcoin. The same package of information that he had, and which was enough to give him wings and sort of land him in Canada and on this crypto entrepreneurial journey, left me completely unaffected for the longest period of time. I mean, I knew the words that were coming out of his mouth, but I had no idea what he was talking about for the longest time. But a few years later, in 2016, when we reconnected, it started to make a lot of sense because by that time I had done a little bit of homework, started to write about financial technology, and I started to understand what he meant when he spoke of uncensorability or financial independence and so on and so forth. So I started working with him in 2017, where I believe I sort of found my groove finally after years and years of this. is in 2020 when I discovered NFTs for the first time. I believe that NFTs will now become the primary vehicle for crypto, that crypto will now become synonymous with NFTs. And the reason for that is because NFTs are culture driven rather than driven by any financial instruments or primarily by financial gains, which is why it is open for people who are not naturally experts in, say, technology or in finance or in social politics, but rather are right brain oriented. They are creatives. And so I belong to this supplementary ecosystem that exists around crypto, which never had a place in crypto until the NFTs came along. So, well, that's the story so far.
There's a lot of different angles I can go from here, but one of the things I wanted to touch on was, you talked about when, Metacoven first told you about, cryptocurrency and kind of the power of what it can kind of do to change the world and become the super trend that's happening. It just kind of went over your head and like you just kind of brushed it off, which a lot of people obviously did, and obviously it's quickly changing. But I read about the serendipitous kind of nature of how he got to participate in I think the Ethereum ICO, which is crazy because of his work with, Bitcoin ATMs, because I think he met the founder through that, through his work. And I know that, I think in one of your interviews, you kind of mentioned this idea of serendipity and kind of, success. And, I'd love for you to kind of just chat for people out there kind of listening about, putting yourself out there to create opportunities, because obviously this is just one example of, serendipity, but also like being prepared to kind of, I guess, accept that serendipity or luck to, be part of this big trend. So if you have any thoughts on that, I'd love to kind of hear that as well first.
Yeah, sure, Anna. I mean, to be honest, I don't think there's any other choice but to look for these tiny elements of serendipity in our lives. Because the way the world works right now, you can't depend on a linear path, can you? I mean, let's look at, take a very narrow slice and examine it a little bit. My father spent 27 years in the same job. That's what he was. It wasn't his true calling, obviously. He was very good at it, like most people in jobs are. But he's a poet at heart. He's a poet in Tamil. He's a spontaneous poet in Tamil. He writes songs that flow along with the music and so on and so forth. But that was completely, outside of the purview of the 14 hours a day he spent at work. I spent about a dozen years in a career which didn't speak to me at all before I discovered it. The people I work with now might have, wasted 2 or 3 years of their lives into pursuits that didn't lead to the pursuit of happiness, if I may call it that. But that cycle is slowly becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. One part is because there are so many other opportunities out there. The other is because obsolescence is creeping up extremely quickly. It catches up with you. I mean, look at the trend of technology itself, right? 10, 15 years ago, you could survive and make a career out of just learning one programming language. Maybe you're a Java expert and you've made it. That's not possible anymore. So one way of looking at it, the cynical way, is to understand that you can't follow a linear path anymore, and you need to put yourself in the top 1 percentile of at least the knowledge bank, to what's happening right now, and try and get in there somehow, to find the new street, to find the new Berlin where you can pitch your ideas, your skills, and where, find new markets for yourself. That's one. The positive aspect of this is to see that, it's available, it's accessible, irrespective of your circumstances, irrespective of geography. If you have an internet connection, you're immediately plugged into a global marketplace. You just have to know where to look. And now, thanks to the proliferation of new information about crypto and about the NFT space, that information is accessible.
Yeah, and I think COVID obviously has accelerated trends that were on course to happen in the next 5 years, and maybe in 24 months, what would have happened in 10 years happened in 24 months. So definitely what you're saying, I agree with. In terms of starting, the world's largest NFT fund, you kind of mentioned, how you went from a journalist, you met Metacoven, you guys, started this fund together. Metaverse, and like you've talked about why you think NFTs are going to be the biggest use case for cryptocurrency. So I guess, can you talk a bit more about, what, I guess, what do you hope to do with the fund? Like, what are some of the, whatever you're allowed to share, in the next couple of years? What's your roadmap, I guess? And, maybe obviously talk about, what everyone knows you guys for, which is buying that, $69 million Beeple piece as well. Like, why did you guys do that? Like, I mean, there's a ton of theories out there, and you kind of talked about them, but I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts again on those two specific topics.
Sure. A small clarification: when we say fund, it's a fund in a very loose sense.
Yes, definitely.
And when you say business partner, even that is in a very, very loose sense, because all of the money is Metacoins, right?
Yes.
My only job here is to find creative ways of spending his money, which is a fun job description. But it can also be, intensely challenging at times. Because it's a privilege, right, to have someone, trust in your abilities to sniff out diamonds in the rough. That's one aspect of it. But most of the inspiration, and I say these crazy ideas to buy the Beeple 5,000 piece, for instance, comes from Metaverse. I'm just the devil on his shoulder, egging him on to go and complete that. That's kind of how I see myself. So that said, what's the purpose of this fund? It's something that we've been trying to discover ourselves. At the time, it was mostly instinctive, right? In the 6 to 8 months preceding the setting up of Metaverse as some sort of a thing, both Metacoven and I were on our independent journeys in the NFT space. We found out at some point that our theories about the NFT space converged. The theory that I just described, that NFTs are going to be the primary vehicle for crypto. So that sort of converged, and that's how Metaverse was born. The purpose of Metaverse is to broadly, I'd say, collect stories and to catalyze change. Collect interesting stories from the Metaverse, which would then inspire other people like Metacoven, other people like Tubudo, to sort of converge into this renaissance, into the space, and to catalyze real world change. But why do we want change to happen? What sort of a change do we want is what we were constantly thinking about. It's not some sort of a broad category where you're, or even something extremely specific like BLM or the environment. Though we are passionate about all of that, I think it's only recently that we realized what we were fighting for, or sort of pushing towards. There is this idea of decoloniality, which Metacoven speaks about now. It's a very interesting concept, I think, which people of our background can relate to. It's the flip side of the modernity coin, right? Basically, the idea is to increase representation of underrepresented cultures, which is currently not possible. Not just financial opportunities, but cultures and practices and forms of expression which were buried under the bulldozer of modernity. I think that's what we're pushing towards, and everything that we work towards, consciously or subconsciously, sort of leads towards decoloniality.
Yes, I think I read one of the interviews that Metacoven did where he spoke about one of the reasons of many of why he bought that piece was to, basically kind of almost like that shift of power that's happening from west to east, and like touch on the fact that somebody that looks like him could, aspire or purchase something like this. It's kind of making a statement as well. Because if you typically look for something like that, you definitely see names of different origins than what you would see, we saw in this story, which was your names, which are, Tamil in background. So I read about that. You talked about sharing stories, and you're trying to share the story of why NFTs will be kind of this, the form of how cryptocurrency will become more popular or mainstream. I read about the Metaverse Fellowship that I think you guys created to help find people to tell these stories in this space, and like you had this, I think, $500,000 purse. Did you end up finding those 5 people or 5 creators to tell those stories that you wanted for the Metaverse Fellowship?
more like 52 actually. We started off with 5, and then we teamed up with Nas Daily, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We teamed up with the Nas Academy, and one major chunk of the fellowship is now going into a program called the Crypto Creator Program, where Nas Daily has practically brought in 50 creators to tell stories from the metaverse over a 3 to 4 month period. And we also have 2 storytellers, who work on the original plan of the fellowship for over a 12-month time. So yeah, we have found the people we need. We'll make that announcement too shortly. I mean, I said it first here, so there's your exclusive.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That's huge. I didn't know about that. It's kind of like I really like the strategy of like storytelling to help because like when you talk about NFTs, cryptocurrency, to the average person that's not part of that tier of people that are heavily invested in learning about these kind of things, it kind of just goes over their head, or it's kind of like viewed as a trend versus like they're missing like this opportunity to be part of something that's going to be part of our permanent existence. So I think storytelling is a great way to kind of share it maybe in a way that's more understandable or easy to pick up for the average person. It's kind of like what Balaji is kind of doing with his project. I think 1959 or 60. He's working on a project that similar to this, where it's kind of like a newsletter. I think you probably heard of it, where I think he created a newsletter that rewards people for doing tasks. So it's very smart, kind of using media or storytelling to share this kind of concept. Why are you so bullish on NFTs? Like, from my understanding of NFTs, non-fungible tokens is, I see popular, iterations of it in like NBA Top Shot or like Zed with, the digital horses and horse racing. And, I kind of see them as kind of, temporary trends that have done well. And then obviously if you're looking at the financial aspect of it, NBA Top Shot was doing really well, and now all those NFTs have gone down by 80% in value, and I think Zed is probably going to go through the same trend as well. So for you, why are you guys so like confident that NFTs will be that the future of cryptocurrency? Like, what makes you so confident about it?
I mean, for one, like I said, it's a cultural phenomena, so it's impossible to put it back in the box. And I think the financial trends that you're seeing are cyclical in any case, so not too worried about it. And considering Metaverse has not sold a single NFT so far, that was ever the plan. Like, why we're bullish is because of this aspect of uh, we can't think of a better way to keep a cultural phenomenon than with NFTs, something that's so vivid and also on the blockchain. Right? So that's what makes us extremely bullish about NFTs in the first place. And I think we've only sort of touched the tip of the iceberg as far as the possibilities are concerned. Right? I mean, the current explosion that you've seen in the NFT space has all been about acquiring NFTs, right? I mean, gobbling up as many NFTs as we can. But then the important question of what do I do with these NFTs arises. And that's going to lead to the real explosion, right? When all of these virtual worlds start to become extremely high fidelity, when the utility of these NFTs starts to increase, when the ownership of these NFTs starts to become more fluid, where you can start to not just lend or lease out these NFTs, but also maybe use them as collateral to gain loans. There lies your financial potential. And finally, the idea of interoperability, where a single NFT can now represent different things in different metaverse worlds. So that's the end game, right? Not what you're seeing right now, not the cyclical trends that we're seeing right now.
Got it. And like one of the things obviously I like about NFTs, like you talked about, it being accessible to the creative class that typically has been underappreciated. Like the, practical business case, or use cases, if you're an artist, you created art in the past, but, your art appreciates, maybe 5-10 years after you start. You don't get to participate in like the secondary market when you sell your art and like, it explodes because you've sold it to that first buyer who bought it for $100 and now it's worth $100,000.
Yep.
But with NFTs, I really love that practical aspect. I know you talked a lot about kind of the future of NFTs and all of that's valid. But I think if you're looking at why today it's so powerful, I think that's one of the reasons. For me, as like a common person, like you're in this space, you obviously are way more well versed. But for me, I thought that was so
No,
powerful.
you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, the influx of artists is what started off the whole thing, right? And the reason they came here is because of this alternative economic model, which they didn't know was even possible. Right? They've been fighting for that for centuries now, practically.
Yes.
And it's now finally possible. Royalties are finally possible in the NFT space in crypto.
Yeah, I'm just super fascinated by NFTs in general because even you look at, the creative class, I also consider athletes. So one of the things about athletes is, if you're an NBA player today, you're kind of restricted by the rules and kind of the collective bargaining agreement with the league, where once you become a player of the league, you can't even you don't have, rights to your own name or like your image and things like that. That kind of belongs to the league. But an NFT of yourself, like, I think LaMelo Ball, he's like a rookie. He has an interesting NFT project where I think he released like collectible cards versions of himself that are kind of dynamic. So as he gets different awards, the cards change in shape or like appearance. And I don't know. I just think it's like very fascinating and like interesting where this world's going to kind of go. Like you're thinking 20 years ahead. I'm not even there. I'm like thinking 2-3 years ahead. I'm blown away by the possibilities. So you talked about like metaverse as well. I've heard that term and I have a sense of what it is, but for the average person that's listening that doesn't know what a metaverse, like what the metaverse is, can you explain what that is and like I guess how that fits into the future of cryptocurrency and NFTs and things like that? And also touch on things
I
like,
mean,
and if you can also touch on things like people buying virtual land in those metaverses or like landmarks, like, why is that happening? If you can touch on that a bit more.
sure. I mean, metaverse is a fairly simple. It's just an online place where people can hang out, but where an online space doesn't belong to any one person or entity. That's pretty much it. Like, I mean, if you think of any of the metaverse worlds, whether it is Decentraland or CryptoVoxels, they're all decentralized, right? So if you own, say, a land parcel in Decentraland, it can't be taken away from you. You can't be bullied out of it like it can happen in the real world. Sense of ownership, that particular NFT of that particular asset is absolute. So that's what separates, virtual worlds, in crypto from elsewhere. Why is it so popular? Why do people spend money on virtual spaces? It's because it's the real estate of the future. It's going to become 3D, right? I mean, think about this. Um, there are hundreds of millions of websites, but there's just a handful that rule your day, right? That top banner on Netflix and maybe a handful of other websites, maybe a news website here, maybe something else. In the future, I think it will become three-dimensional, those experiences, and the metaverse is part of that. So it becomes part of your identity, your address, your go-to place, which is like permanent and sort of set in stone. That's the massive potential that these virtual worlds have.
Do you really think that, human beings are social creatures? Like, I know there's a more proliferation of like people spending more of their time online, and we've had versions of this before with like, video games where like, you have virtual characters that kind of represent you in this like digital world. But do you actually think that
Yeah,
people will go from kind of living in like the physical world and being social creatures and spending more time in the metaverse?
I sure hope not. And I don't think so. To be honest, it's not a binary situation. It's not a rejection of the real world. Rather, a freer place with more transparent economics and a better sense of ownership than what we currently have. That's all it is. And I think all of these meetings, right, in these um, this cohesion that's happening, cultural cohesion, will lead to richer real life experiences. That's what we hope will happen. Right? This is one step away from being able to meet in the real world. Um, you know, Ready Player One and Snow Crash might have been inspirations for the metaverse, but the idea is that the world doesn't have to get so dystopian for all of these things to occur. That's all. I mean, even now, right? As we speak, we've had some. I've never met the hundreds of people that I've forged relationships with over the past year during the pandemic. It's so close to them. I can't wait to meet them in person, and I will too. And that's the whole idea, right? I mean, you can't taste or smell or shake hands online. That's not going to change, irrespective of how much haptic feedback your super suit has. That's not the point at all. It's just the first port of call where you get to have access to some interesting people, like-minded people, brilliant minds from all across the globe, and then you translate that meeting into something else in the real world.
So I guess with these metaverses, I guess, I think you guys touched on it. I think biology kind of touches on this as well, where with, right now we have physical states that are kind of, countries that people defined some time ago. And like, we agreed to kind of some rules to kind of govern the people, etc. But the future will have, instead of physical, you're saying the metaverse is like, it could be different metaverses based on like interest or like, things that you want to do. So if you're, if you want to create like this digital world of people that are just interested in NFTs or just interested in, I don't know, some other topic or like interest, you're saying there'll be more of these metaverses based on kind of that concept of the digital state. So instead of states or like countries or like worlds governed by physical rules, they'll be governed by like, these virtual rules and in this virtual state. Am I getting that right?
Don't tell anybody. You are. No, I mean, see, there's two aspects to what you're talking about. One is you're talking about, in a sort of a broad sense, spaces for very niche ideas to exist, which is exactly what the metaverse is for, right? When I spoke of subcultures, which are underrepresented in the real world, there is space for every subculture to exist in the metaverse, and NFTs are a way to express those subcultures. So sure, yeah. The other part of what you're saying is the metaverse an exit from the the socio economic dynamics of the real world. I'd say crypto itself is that exit. Metaverse is just an expression of that. I mean, the moment you hold crypto, you've already exited the conventional financial system. In a sense, that's your escape hatch, your route. It's a very uncomfortable thought to have in a sense, because once you think about it, you're admitting to yourself that the system is broken in a sense, and it's also a scary thought to have, isn't it? At some point, but then it's also the truth. So when you get into crypto, you already exit the conventional financial system, and to be able to express that is what the metaverse is for.
Yeah, like you're kind of touching on, like there's people that you've forged relationships during this pandemic that you haven't met in real life yet, but you can, even without speaking a word to them or seeing their face or shaking their hand, you have this connection with them. And for me, I've been thinking about that as well, because I live in a condo where I probably have more in common with somebody like yourself that's like thousands of miles away, or like other people that I've met during this pandemic, like, having conversations like this that are thousands of miles away, but than I do with my neighbor who's physically next to me, or like my neighbors on my floor. Like, I don't know who they are. I don't know
Exactly,
their interests.
exactly.
So I've been thinking a lot about this because, like, I've been obviously, like you said, crypto is kind of that entry point. Bitcoin is what got me into understanding or trying to understand what cryptocurrency is and blockchain and the metaverse and like NFTs. But from like even beyond that, these are just kind of terms we're giving it. But like from a high level, like there's more happening. Like there's a shift happening because of COVID. I've been doing thinking, and I'm sure other people have, like, that's why people are moving out of cities, not because, prices are cheaper in the country or like out of the city, but because, you've been living in these communities that often you don't know the people, or you don't have social bonds with these people, but the people you do have social bonds with, you can kind of be anywhere and still have those social bonds. Like, I would love to, travel the world and not, be, local, like, location agnostic, and, still have strong connections with people that I meet. When I think about it, I've probably been participating in some kind of metaverse, through like WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups or, email chains. So, yeah.
You're right. That's all part of the metaverse, right? A clubhouse chat with people from halfway across the world, or a meeting on Discord, or hanging out as an avatar in any of these metaverse worlds. It's all part of the metaverse, and I also agree with the fact that you sometimes are able to relate to people who you've never met and probably won't for a really long time. And that's a very important part of your life. But I think it's still nice to get a fruitcake for Christmas from your neighbor. So I wouldn't shut that door entirely.
No, I was just something that, like as you kind of talked about, and I was thinking about this topic, we're
Yeah,
social creatures. We definitely, when
yeah,
we meet people that we want to hang out with, it's a different feeling, but, it's just a thought that came to mind. Um, you touched on this kind of earlier when you kind of talked about, when I called Metaverse a fund, and you said it's very loosely called a fund, or that Metacoven was your business partner, you know, um, one concept that I've been hearing more and more about, and for myself, I have kids now, and I think, what advice would I give to a young person today if they want to make a living or create wealth? And I kind of stumbled across, I guess, a DAO, DA, for the users listening or people listening, DAO. And from my understanding, what a DAO is, it's kind of a decentralized company, almost, in the sense where, like, there's no real employees or no
yeah.
real management, but like you have skills that you can kind of get paid for through this DAO network, through tokens. And one thing I think of is like Coinbase, for example, where they weren't like really a DAO, but I think at the beginning of Coinbase, all employees were either forced to or had the option to get paid in Bitcoin. And it looked foolish at the time, but man, I really wish I was one of those early Coinbase employees that had that option. But I guess my question around that is really, what are your thoughts on the DAO, and, like, what advice would you be giving to a young person today if they wanted to kind of make a living or create wealth, like knowing the future that you envision, kind of going all in on NFTs and, like, cryptocurrency? What advice would you give a young person today?
No, I'd say get into crypto, try and understand it because it does represent the cutting edge of technology today and finance. And I think the richest way to get into crypto or into this new space is to earn crypto rather than invest in crypto. I mean, uh, I think that's the best way to go about it because when you try and earn in crypto, you're already working for something that you believe in. And, there's so much of that in the NFT space, irrespective of what your interest is. It can be sport, it can be gaming, it can be art, it can be a variety of things, and you can start anywhere, and you can start in a place that you deeply understand instead of trying to learn everything from scratch. So you do that, and you start to earn in crypto, and then you start to appreciate the space even more. Instead of approaching it as an investor, trying to multiply money right from the offset. At least that's the advice I uh, give. It's kind of worked for me. Not that it's made me massively rich or anything like that, but it's just that the kind of experiences that you stumble upon won't leave you cynical at the end of it. Won't leave you clutching your heart, hyperventilating every time market crashes.
So what would you do if, like, you got to go back to, like, your 16-year-old body, or, like, you got to go back to the age of 16, you got transported into, like, 2021 or 2020 with all the knowledge that you have, and you got, to reverse time? What would you specifically do, like, with all the knowledge that you had, like, based on kind of the general advice you gave around earning crypto versus, investing in crypto? What would you specifically do?
Oh man, to be honest, Tara, I would have done what I've been doing for the last year and a half, or year and a half. I think that's all it takes. I'm not. My skills have not grown exceptionally in the last 5 to 7 years. The same skill set that I had of storytelling to be able to be to remain awed by interesting phenomena has not changed, and I think that served me the best over the last year and a half. And I think that's what I tell my 16-year-old to just keep doing that, and to have more faith in the non-technical, non-academic skills that I had, which might come in more handy than anything else that I might be able to learn in school. That's not financial advice, it's not life advice, but that's what I tell my 16-year-old self.
And, like, going back to kind of, the purchase you made, the $69 million purchase, obviously you guys got a ton of press around this. And, before you guys, weren't as well known, and then you became more famous. What's been the experience dealing with this, newfound fame and notoriety? Maybe before it was just kind of in the NFT or like crypto world, but now you're like more mainstream famous. Obviously like Metacoven did the piece with Nas Daily, and you guys partnered with them for this for your Metaverse fellowship, which is super exciting. But yeah, how do you deal with this new fame that you've kind of achieved, whether you like it or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag, right? There's no point in uh, complaining about the bad press that you get. When it comes, it's impossible to tell everybody every nuanced aspect of your story. So it's a moot point. But uh, as far as I see it, I think it has been overwhelmingly positive. I'm not talking about image coverage, but rather the opening up of more serendipitous doors, right? I think that has far outweighed anything else that has come our way since then. I mean, we've again forged relationships with some incredible people from all over the world, which we would not have met probably if this hadn't happened. So I think it's worth it to just open some new doors and open up some new possibilities of collaboration and of growing your own self. That's kind of what's happened since Christmas.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look at me. I'm like someone from Toronto, and you're like in India. We would have never met otherwise. So yeah, it's a great point. Um, One of the things that I was curious about as well is, I know it's not a fun per se, but what takes up your day? Like, how do you structure your day? Like, what do you work on? What are you working towards? Like, where do you see yourself in the next 3, 5 years? Maybe, yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
3 to 5 years is a long time, but I think it's safe to say that the idea of decoloniality has started to like really converge in our minds as the thing that we're working towards, and everything that we do sort of neatly bundles itself into these tiny pockets, all of them driving towards the idea of decoloniality. It's fascinating, right? What the kind of work that comes your way when you think about it in terms of decoloniality. You're looking for uh, things that people normally miss. You're looking for things which are not in the mainstream. And even if you are looking to forge connections in the mainstream, it is to sort of shine a spotlight on these gems that people have known about. For instance, we someone who is reviving musical instruments, which were first made over 2,500 years ago. You wouldn't see that. Similar efforts like that all over the world. In when it comes to cuisine, when it comes to history and art and so on. So all of that is part of it. Plus, there are also the follow-up actions to what the Beeple 5000 kicked off, right? Some of the new windows it opened up. How do we push the metaverse forward? How do we now look at the NFT space? What do we do in it to take the next step? All of that stuff. So today, the way I structure my day these days is around no more than 3 or 4 large projects which are currently underway, and just trying to inch closer to a completion date to all of this.
It sounds like, based on kind of how you structure your day and kind of what you're working on, um, it sounds like you're like at that stage, what we call, or at least I heard this term, I think biology used it, was post-economic. Does that sound about right? Where like you're able to kind of freely spend your day thinking about these challenging, interesting problems, and you've kind of are able to make, I don't even know if living is the right term, because I think that term's going to be thrown away sometime in the future. Like, yeah, like, how would you describe it? Like, because you're not really working for a wage anymore. It's like kind of, or even like a contract basis. Like you're just working on interesting problems that you want to solve, and you don't need to think about money. Does that sound like a reasonable statement or no?
Well, that's the thing, right? We started off like that. Tara. We started off with that mindset of abundance, post-economic, as you call it. The mindset of abundance is how Metacoin would describe it. If you don't start off with that point of view, you never lose it. Actually, I mean, it's a difference between looking at the people piece as an investment versus thinking about and being open to the idea that you have no clue what comes on the other side of it. That's the kind of principle that we had. No idea that it was going to go for $69 million. If it had stopped at $10 million, for instance, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We were okay with that too. Right? The idea of being open to possibilities on the other side of something that we just sense in our gut would be historic is the attitude we continue with even right now. And yeah, thinking about the reasons for what we do is also a constant process. Again, you make it sound like it's a lot more stress-free than it actually is. It has its moments, these aha moments, but mostly it's a constant tiny little gear grinding away in your head, right? Am I on the right path? What am I trying to accomplish here? And is what I'm doing today taking me towards what I really want to do? So I think that's a very human thing, and it's not something that you can flip on and off with a switch.
You mentioned that like you structure a day where you're not working on more than 3 to 4 major like or projects, I guess. What's something that you can share that you're working on that you're super excited about? Like, I mean, I know you talked about it from a high level point of view, the post colonial or like I'm not saying the term correctly, but what's something that you're specifically like a specific project that you're working on that you're super excited about?
We are building a space in the metaverse where the Beeple 5000 will finally come to rest. That'll become its home. So that's something we're building. Uh, then there is a physical event that we're working towards. And then there is a collaboration with an Icelandic artist, which we are very, very excited about. So these are the three big things that we're working on right now.
Interesting. So sorry, you said the first part was the metaverse. You're building a metaverse specifically for the Beeple piece.
A space in the metaverse,
A space in
in
the metaverse.
Decentraland, actually.
Okay, got it. And like one of the, around the whole idea of money and investing, it's like a topic that, it's always been kind of this taboo subject. For yourself personally, are you obviously because you're all in the cryptocurrency space? I don't even know if this is just a formality that I'm asking this, but are you strictly focused or like invested in just cryptocurrency / NFTs, or do you also invest in like real world, investments like stocks or, other kinds of investments, or have you just given up on that altogether?
I mean, I never started off on all of those things, so I am all in on crypto, which is more peaceful, I suppose. Me in my head, it's how again Metacoin used to describe it, right? I mean, to say that Jeff Bezos has most of his wealth
Amazon.
In Amazon, right? And Mark Zuckerberg has all of it in Facebook. So it only makes sense that if you're working in a particular industry in a company, you have all your eggs in that basket, even if you do tend to diversify within that basket. I am by no means a trader or an investor, so I just have enough to float around and to not worry about. That's pretty much my my philosophy.
So like outside of work, like what do you like to do for fun, or is this all considered fun for you?
Yeah, this is fun. I mean, it's incredible, right? I don't know who I'm going to talk to next. I don't know, what interesting person I'm going to meet. And this work also involves things that I enjoy doing, which is to communicate, which is to write, which is to think about new ideas. So yeah, it's pretty much that. Outside of work, obviously there's family. I've got kids too. Between the two, I don't see the need to leave myself of these responsibilities as other people would see them. But this is good life.
No, for sure, definitely. Sounds like it. What's an insecurity that you have?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Imposter syndrome, almost on a daily basis. It's sometimes feels too good to be true. And also, it might run out at some point. This whatever is happening with me, this streak of serendipity might come out at some point. But then I know that that's not entirely true because it feels very real, doesn't it? The conversations that I have, the relationships that I've forged are not transactional in any sense. That's very typical of the metaverse. So I'm fine.
Yeah, it's almost like in the metaverse, you're having a bunch of long distance relationships, and to keep those
Yeah,
going, they have to have a bit more substance. And when you have the benefit of spontaneity where you can kind of just physically show up and have those relationships. So makes sense. In terms of your personal legacy, how would you want to be like remembered by your friends and family?
You mean like after I'm gone or something? Or
Yeah. Like it's like yeah, when you're like when you obviously leave this physical world, assuming we don't have the ability
um,
to enter the metaverse, but yes.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter that a bit. For me, what matters is the fact that the present now is fun, and that the people I know and that know me are okay with me and find me tolerable. I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to leave a legacy as such. I'm a
Mm.
very individual person, sort of selfish in that sense. I don't want monuments to myself. I don't want to leave a legacy. I just want to, live in the moment and have a good life right now.
No, that makes sense. Is there like a, for the audience, like, is there like a book or like a podcast or something that you consume recently that's had a massive impact on you in the last couple of years? Um, I know you obviously consume a lot of different things in
Oh,
the kind of line of work you do, but anything particular you want to point our audience to?
yeah, actually, I mean, a couple of books that Atakovan pointed me to have been life changing. One is Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, and the other is Daylight Robbery by Anand Venkateswaran. These two, I think, are very important books and sort of they make for slightly uncomfortable reading, but because they, sort of unveil what's happening around, they have had a massive impact on me. But for maybe some of the younger listeners here, I'd say Terry Pratchett uh, and Neil Gaiman have been two authors who are extremely, fundamental in how I view storytelling. And if you're into Tamil, I'd say Jayakanthan and Nasa Raman. These two authors are their short stories are incredibly evocative. And the economy of words to describe very real situations is just mind blowing. I think you should check all of these out.
What's a new belief, behavior, or habit that has improved your life?
I'd say the antithesis of that insecurity question is to a belief in serendipity, that it is real and that you should go for stuff. I think that has changed my life over the past years. It's made me less hesitant in more confident. I wouldn't say like self-confident, but a little more faith in the universe.
Got it. What's a piece of advice that you would give to, your fellow aspiring Tamil creators out there?
Oh, sure. I said the first mover advantage is very real in crypto, and I'd say one piece of advice I'd give them is get into the crypto space, try and understand it, and start creating today.
That's a good piece of advice. Who's one person in the global Tamil community that you admire and why? And who's one person that isn't Tamil that you admire and why?
I'm drawing a blank, yeah. I'm actually drawing a blank. I mean, interestingly enough, the one person that I can think of is my father. His name is Ramanan. He's a spontaneous poet, like I said, and singer in Tamil. So, I just realized that his body of work and the kind of person he is has sort of become representational to me of everything that Tamil should be. So I'd say my father.
And that's kind of a good segue kind of into the last part of the discussion, which is, a fun game that I like to call Creator Confessions. Basically, I'm going to, I guess, make a few statements, and you're going to quickly just give me an answer that kind of pops into your head. First one, they're pretty easy. So first one is favorite Tamil food.
Tamil Assam rice.
Something that scares you.
Roaches.
Favorite show that you're watching.
Okay. The Immortal Blade. It's an anime thing on Netflix.
So you're a big anime fan. Okay, got it. A place you're itching to travel to after the pandemic is over.
Berlin.
A fellow Tamil creator that you want to give a shout out to. Should we just say Metakovan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Favorite childhood memory?
Childhood memory. Practically, my entire childhood in Vizag. The especially in the house over the hill that had a fantastic view to the sea. So I'd say the favorite memory was standing together at the balcony watching lightning hit the ocean during monsoon.
I'd be terrified of that. I'm terrified of lightning. Pet peeve.
Nothing really surprises me when it comes to what people are capable of. So I don't have any pet peeves. I
Oh,
just
I
put
see.
it down to human condition.
I see. Got it. If you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, a regret that you would have.
None.
I like that answer. Um, a celebrity whose life you'd want to experience for one day.
I think I'm doing a pretty fine job of my own experience. It gives me a taste of what a celebrity life might be like, even if it's a tiny taste. No, thank you. I'm fine.
um, and finally, a PSA that you want to leave our audience with.
Okay. Do your own research when it comes to crypto. Um, when it comes to NFTs, try not to approach it as an investor and try and understand today.
Great. That's kind of a great way to kind of end off the discussion. Anand, thank you so much for, connecting and jumping on this podcast, and making time given your newfound fame with all that you're doing with Metaverse. Super excited to kind of continue to follow your journey and stay connected, hopefully. Thank you for the announcement you made just on this podcast first, which was, partnering up with Nas Daily on the Metaverse Fellowship with, I think you said 100 plus creators. Super excited to kind of see where that goes. So for anybody kind of just listening and wants to kind of follow your journey, what's kind of the best place for them to do that? Like, is it on LinkedIn? Is it on any kind of social media? Like, what's the best way?
My Twitter is the best actually. At Metaverse and Troubadour. Both of these are pretty active. I think that's the best place to follow what we do.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I mean, we want to thank you again for kind of, sharing your journey and, I think educating people on, cryptocurrency, the metaverse. Like, there's a lot of things that most people don't know, and I hope people get out of this conversation. So thank you again, and thank you for the audience for listening and tuning in. And yeah, we'll look forward to the next episode.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.